Let's get more on that warning that young people are half as likely to be homeowners today as they would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah, first generation, I think, to be poorer than their parents, actually,
yep.
Which is the whole point, isn't it, of our society, is to be better in the next generation.
Yeah.
So it's according to a new report, which has also found that in the last 2 decades, average house prices have risen 7 times faster than the average young person's income. Joining us now to discuss this is consumer expert Harry Wallop. It's made the front pages, this, hasn't it? And it is the absolute reality for many people watching this programme, that, or their children at least, that without the help of mum and dad, early inheritance, give away what you were going to give them when you passed on, give it all now, home ownership is something that we may be looking as something that was a nice idea once.
Yeah, it could be a lost generation who never get to own their own home, and more importantly, can never dream of owning their own home. And that's what the report, I think, is very interesting about, is that it was only a generation ago when more or less anyone with a half-decent job could think about saving up and getting their own home. You know, teachers, nurses, perfectly achievable. Because when they're talking...
My parents, immigrants, you know, worked in factories, did nothing, you know, worked in factories, worked for British Rail, owned 2 homes in their lifetime.
So what's happened in a generation? What's been the economic shift?
Well, there's not enough homes being built, not nearly enough homes being built. There's more people needed for those homes, not just immigration, but sort of a more fractured society. More people expect to live on their own.
So they're all basic demand and supply.
Yeah, it's basic demand and supply. And then it's been made worse over the last generation by the fact that money has been easy to borrow. You know, particularly following the recession, we've had, you know, interest rates at very low levels. So it's been very easy to borrow money. And one could argue the government has made it far worse with various schemes to try and get people onto the housing ladder. It's just stoked.
And it's failed completely. I mean, I was saying earlier, I mean, my younger children are in their early 30s now. They're on the housing ladder because we help them, like so many parents do. I can't think of a single young person of their generation that I know who's on the housing ladder on their own steam, under their own steam. They've all had to be helped.
You have to be earning a considerable amount of money to be able to save up enough for a deposit and,
pay the mortgage.
Yeah. I mean, average house price is now £230,000. And, you know, forget in London,
and
it's
that's
double
not your forever home. You know, people talk about that's their first home.
Absolutely.
And if you have a second child, and then what? I mean, I do find it interesting in the sense that I always remember you know, whenever we talk about this, I always think, you know, in Germany and in Europe, you know, in France, families rent homes for the whole of their lives. It is not an issue. They don't see being the king of your castle as the marker of success. In this country, we absolutely... I mean, you look at how property crime is treated, as opposed to crime against a human being. Property crime is treated as this big crime. You know, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But so is it a bad thing that we don't... You know, maybe the next generation will think, do you know what? Let's live our lives for now. Let's not worry about... Let's pay our rent. Let's live our lives. Let's not cut corners all the time, hoping for this dream.
I mean, I can understand, you know, that sense of security you get with owning your own home. The issue is that in Europe, the rented sector is far more functional. We don't have a functional, you know, private rented sector in Britain. And that has also been made far worse by the booming house prices. So, you know, so many of the new homes that are being built, you know, they were meant for first-time buyers, are ending up in buy-to-let and then being, you know, rented out at huge prices to young people.
So, given that this generation we're talking about is never going to be able to, as a generation, ever be able to own their own home, presumably at some point the housing market's going to collapse because there'll be nobody to buy the houses.
And some people say that's a very good thing because that's the only way we're going to solve this crisis. I mean, it's not inconceivable that could happen down the line because interest rates are due to go up, and we've had a decade of rock-bottom interest rates, and suddenly a whole bunch of people on interest rate-only mortgages are going to find they've got a lot of money. They're suddenly going to need...
Mind you, it's a bit of a psychological trick, isn't it, to say that if you buy your own house, you own your own property. You don't. You have a mortgage. You only have that property as long as you've got a job. The moment you lose your job, you've lost the house.
A lot of people have paid off. A lot of those people, you know, who have paid off their mortgages over the last 10 years. So there are, you know, over a third of people, you know, who are homeowners have paid off their...
A third? That many?
Yeah, paid off their mortgages.
Gosh.
So I bet you've paid off your mortgage.
Yeah, I did, yeah, some years ago, yeah.
So there are a lot of people, and as the population ages, there's that whole generation who've completely paid off their mortgages.
It's interesting, in our lifetime, we are going to see a massive cultural change, aren't we, about how we view property.
So it's going to be a rental generation followed by a collapse.
I don't know, but we need more. I mean, the government keeps on promising more homes, and they never develop. They never really deliver. The only people who win are the house builders.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.